At Direct Service Overhead, we know how much trust you put in the individuals who have the privilege of working on the components of your home. We understand that a broken garage door is the last thing you want to be worried about, and most of the time, doors break at the most inconvenient times. Our professionally trained technicians service 24 hours a day, and our high-cycle parts are guaranteed to make a noticeable impact on your garage door without putting a damper on your wallet. If you're looking for need of assistance maintaining your current garage door, our team has the experience and expertise to deliver the results you deserve. Give Direct Service Overhead a call today or visit us online to learn more.
What's going on, Arkansas Razorback fans, SEC fans everywhere? Welcome to the Pig Trail Network YouTube channel. I'm Ty Hudson. A little bit different. There's some hiccups along the way. This is definitely something, obviously, you guys know I don't do a lot of, but I want to try and do as many interviews as I can. And why not the one and only Stephen Hamner of QB Spotlight. Stephen, how you doing, my man?
Doing good, Ty. Thanks for having me on, dude. I know we've been Marco Poloing a bunch, so I'm glad we're able to finally get on this app and chop up some quarterbacks and football.
Yeah, man. It's long overdue. Very, very long overdue. I do get people from time to time that want me to bring you back on. They want to do the Discord live that we did a little while back again. They want you back on. They love your takes, and for good reasoning, right? You're obviously you know what you're talking about. If anybody watches his content, or if you haven't watched his content, you should go hop on over to QB Spotlight here on YouTube. You can also follow him on Twitter by the same name, QB Spotlight, or you can follow him as Stephen Hamner also on Twitter. Either one of those Twitter accounts. So why not let's just go ahead and get started. Again, we do apologize. There's a little bit of a delay. We're still trying to work out the kinks and all this, doing the best that we can. But we hope you enjoy this interview. So, Stephen, let's just start off right out the gate with a little Malik Hornsby discussion here. What you and I, again, we've talked on Marco Polo about this. What do you make of Malik Hornsby splitting time between being QB2 and a wide receiver, and how do you think Arkansas should approach this in practice moving forward?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I think there's a few ways to look at it. From the first, let's look at it in the positive manner of, okay, he's a really dang good athlete. We need to get him on the field. He's not going to be able to play quarterback very often because of KJ. And so we got to get him the ball somehow. Let's move him to receivers some, but still develop him as a quarterback. The other way to look at it, and this would be more in your field, I won't spend too much time on it, but the other way to look at it would be like, okay, what does that say about the receiving core if we need to move the backup quarterback to get reps at receiver, right? So I think there's two ways to look at it, but I'll stick to the positive manner of things and say he's a really good athlete. Let's get him on the field. But at the same time, you don't want him to not develop as a quarterback too. So I think you alluded to it, kind of the tricky part, making sure he gets his reps at the quarterback position, but also get his reps at the receiver if that's something that they want to do. I think as long as he's on the field more than he was last year with the ball in his hands, not even from the quarterback position, I think that's a positive for Arkansas's offense, especially with Treylon Burks being gone, and they're going to need to find a way to distribute the volume of passes to other receivers or just other people in general.
I didn't ask you this before. And we haven't talked. We talked a little bit this weekend, but I forgot to ask you. Did you get a chance to catch any of the spring game at all? Arkansas spring game?
Not a bunch, just some like highlights here and there. So I probably couldn't speak too intelligently on it. I just know kind of what you updated me with, and just seeing some clips here and there.
So it's pretty clear that they're gonna definitely move him out there, and they want to get him some reps out there. Last week, you didn't hear a lot about it. You didn't hear them. It sounded like maybe they experimented with it. Now they're going to move him just back and let him concentrate on being QB2, and then they trot him out there at wide receiver, and there was a connection made there between KJ Jefferson and Malik Hornsby. For one, I'm excited about getting him on the field one way or another. I don't mind seeing more of that, but then, like we've kind of already discussed, now it's about making sure he still gets the time that he needs as the backup quarterback. Lucas Coley, who was, by a lot of people believed he was QB3. He's in the portal. So now you feel like, even though you've got Cade Fortin back there who's experienced, you kind of feel like they're a little thinner at quarterback, but then they still have the three guys. It feels a little odd with Coley out, and now you've got Malik Hornsby playing a little bit of wide receiver. But again, you feel confident in a guy that's, even though he's a walk-on, he's not taking up a scholarship. You do feel pretty good that you've got QB3 at least somewhat solidified. So there is that, and that's something that fans have also asked me quite a bit about. So, speaking from a player's point of view, how difficult is this for Malik Hornsby going from a full-time backup quarterback, now getting those reps at wide receiver and trying to balance that out? Like, how difficult is that? And I think you could probably add some perspective on this.
Yeah, I think now it depends on what they're going to ask him to do, but I think it can pose a challenge. So many years ago in college, whenever I was getting switched positions, it was very unfamiliar to me to play the other position I was switched to, even though I've been playing football my whole life. And Malik Hornsby, being 10 times the athlete I ever was, will be able to pick it up a lot faster. But at the same time, he's having to not just physically know what to do, but mentally know, okay, this backer's coming in there, especially with the RPO system. Okay, am I going to be blocking? Am I going to be taking a glance route? Am I going to be, just running an off route? So I think from that standpoint, it can be challenging. And what I would imagine, and again, I don't want to put words in Bryles' mouth, but I would imagine they have a kind of a basic select package for him at the receiver position where he can learn it gradually and easily, and then still get the reps at quarterback. And the last thing I'll touch on that is the fact that he is a quarterback. He should know all the assignments the receiver is supposed to do anyways, right? So now it's just applying to what he should already know, just for the fact that he was a quarterback and he knows the assignment, or he's supposed to know the assignment of every position on the field. But like we all have heard, like, practice makes perfect, as cliche as that sounds. So if you're taking reps away from the quarterback position, then those are reps that you could be using to get better at that position, and vice versa. So it's a happy balance. There's no right or wrong answer. It's just, okay, how can we manage this and make this work?
Yeah, and that's something we talked about last week, or on my live show, talking with the audience. You don't magically get, let's say he gets 30 minutes to work out with the wideouts or whatever, or to run routes and to run with the twos or whatever, or run with the ones with KJ on the field. You don't magically get 30 more minutes for him to go back and play or to get reps at quarterback. So when he's taking reps at wide receiver, you're losing those reps as a quarterback, or someone else is losing reps. So that is something I think fans should consider. But again, I'm all for it. If that means we get a KJ to Malik Hornsby connection, that guy's raw athleticism is unreal. So I'm all for it, but it's balancing all that and trying to keep him healthy, which is going to be really interesting to see how Arkansas navigates that moving forward. All right. This is a conversation that you and I have had on Marco Polo, and fans, again, this is another one of those kind of questions when we talk about interleague play, when you're comparing players, and you probably know where I'm going with this. The KJ Jefferson versus Hendon Hooker at Tennessee, they're pretty, when you look at their numbers, they're pretty identical. Hendon Hooker, who threw for 2,900 yards, 68% pass completion, 31 passing touchdowns, just 3 picks. He also ran for 620 yards and 5 rushing touchdowns. KJ Jefferson, he threw also for high 60s, in the high 60s, 67.3% with 2,600 yards, 21 touchdowns, 4 picks, sacked 27 times. But he led the Razorbacks in rushing at 146 carries for 664 yards and 6 touchdowns, just to familiarize some folks who maybe they're either Tennessee fans or they're Hog fans, and they didn't know this about the other these are two quarterbacks that are very identical in terms of numbers and maybe even in the offense. And this has been a discussion between you and I. This has been a discussion between you and I and a mutual friend of ours, my Discord, the Pig Trail Network Discord, and other places on Twitter. I want to know from you, how do you look at these two? And I don't want to ask you who do you think's better, because that just seems real like kind of a basic question. But I guess if you're building a team, let's say you're building the RPO, who would you take first? Would you take Hendon Hooker or KJ? And I'm not trying to set you up to be an enemy of either fan base here. I just want your take on that. Who would you take if you're building your RPO? And how do you think these two, what kind of seasons do they have? Is it going to be, do you think they're going to both be identical like they were a year ago, or is this going to be a year where they kind of separate from one another?
Yeah, interesting discussion. We could probably talk about this for an hour, right? And I'll say this kind of right up front, because you hear people in different fan bases argue, man, Hendon Hooker is so much better than KJ Jefferson and vice versa. But I would say to those fans, they probably haven't spent a lot of time watching KJ Jefferson, or if Arkansas fans are, head over heels over KJ, they probably haven't spent a lot of time watching Hendon Hooker. Like, both quarterbacks are dang good quarterbacks, right? Like, I think you couldn't go wrong with either one in the RPO system, the veer and shoot, whatever you want to call it. Both have those tendencies in very similar schemes. They are a little bit different, whereas Hypo is probably going to get a little bit more four wide, spread the field, get receivers outside the numbers, whereas Arkansas is probably going to use the tight end a little bit more, but still similar concept, but just different personnel and different packages. I would say I don't know if anything necessarily separates them because they're so similar, but their running style is different, where KJ is a bigger guy. KJ is okay kind of doing those QB draws, getting up 5-6 yards. Not that Hendon Hooker can't do it, but Hendon Hooker is going to be more of your perimeter guy, get outside the edge, use his speed, try to probably not take as many hits as KJ takes. But you're right, both did a great job taking care of the football, which is numero uno in that type of offense, is because how quick you run the ball. Several interceptions can get you down 3 or 4 scores, right? So they did a great job taking care of the football. I think Hooker led the team in rushing too, like KJ. I could be wrong, but he was up there. And so I think they're very similar quarterbacks. If I had to pick one, and again, you probably know me by now. You probably know me by now that when you asked me that question, I was already thinking of a cop-out answer. And so I think it would depend on the RPO system you want to use. So if you want to use the RPO system that Arkansas uses, where it's more tight end and you got a little bit more kind of a heavier run package, I would go with KJ. If you want to use the Tennessee RPO system where they're going to pass a little bit more, I would go with Hendon Hooker. But I think both guys, you could probably be interchangeable, and you would evolve the offense around who the quarterback is. So I copped out, but that's a political answer, not to get political on here, but I'll take that route. I like both guys a lot. I like both guys a lot.
Yeah. No, that's a good answer. And you took the words right out of my mouth. I was going to say, you need to run for office down there in Texas. That was perfect, though. You did it. You did it well. That was great. I think you're right. You bring up a really good point about KJ manning his system. He does it so well, where they use a tight end and they're running downhill more, where it's more downhill, and Hendon Hooker, who's probably more suited in the offense that they run at Tennessee. That's a really good point. And that's that's one of those debates. It's building in the offseason, Hooker versus KJ Jefferson. Yeah, Hooker was second in rushing according to ESPN, but not by much. 620 yards behind their running back Jabari Small, who had 792 yards. And they were a pretty solid running offense as well. Arkansas edged them out. I think Arkansas led the SEC in rushing when the dust settled. So, final question. I think that this is another one that you and I have touched on a little bit. I hope it doesn't throw you off too much. How well does this offense, from a quarterback's perspective, or any skill position player for that matter, prepare someone for the next level? Treylon Burks is obviously the most recent for Kendall Briles. He's looked at as a first-round prospect, but I think a lot of people could agree that he's probably getting there simply because of his just talent. Like his raw talent is through the roof. Do you think this offense, you think Kendall Briles veer and shoot is good for getting guys prepared for the next level? And does that maybe is it more of a pro for them, I guess, to be in this offense? Does it give them any kind of advantage getting ready for the draft?
Yeah, another interesting topic that we could go on for a while here. I think yes and no, and we'll get into it. I think from a wide receiver standpoint, like a skill position standpoint, I think the odds are a lot more in their favor to be prepared for the next level. Like if you look at a Michael Crabtree at Texas Tech, right, or even some like the Oklahoma State guys when they were running the air raid where they had the Justin Blackman, the Des Bryant, not the same type of offense, but similar schematically. So I think because receivers are running so many routes that it can prepare them, and, their ball skills can be prepared well because of the attempts that they have. So I think it can. If you talk to a lot of people in the football world and traditionally looking at how quarterbacks have been developed in this offense, the odds are not really in their favor. Like if you look at like the what was Art Briles' system at Baylor, besides RG3, who had one really good year, there weren't really that many quarterbacks that made it at the next level for extended period of time. Texas Tech for a while didn't have a lot of quarterbacks that made it at the next level for extended period of time. Now I know the offenses aren't the same, but the same tree. And I know we talked about this with Art Briles. If he's trying to sell the offense as a recruiting standpoint, I think what he could do to make it seem a bit more in his favor is be like, guys, I've only been at OC for 5 years total, 3 to Arkansas, FAU, U of H, and maybe was he I don't know if he was technically the OC at Baylor, but his dad was probably calling the plays. So I think his timesheet still hasn't been that long where he can be like, guys, I've only had 5-6 years of being OC. Like we're still building this thing. So even though I think traditionally it hasn't really prepared quarterbacks for the next level, just because the reads are so much different and they scheme open receivers in this offense compared to the next level, you throw guys open a lot more. That doesn't mean you can't be prepared. Like we've seen KJ throw guys open plenty of times, right? Like the 4th and 1 throw against Alabama, back shoulder to Burks comes to mind, right? Like just throwing him open for a touchdown. So just because traditionally it hasn't done a great job preparing doesn't mean that it can't be and it won't, because the air raid offense that Briles runs, or the RPO offense that Briles runs, isn't necessarily the traditional air raid offense, right? There's more schemes and there's more kind of a running friendly approach. So that's the answer in a 3-4 minute window where yes and no. Traditionally it hasn't, but I can see it trending there and getting there. I think the fact that the NFL is evolving a bit too probably helps this offensive system at the next level potentially.
Yeah, you're right. You are seeing the NFL. You're starting to see a little bit more RPO in the NFL. You thought when Cam got into the league, you thought you'd see an abundance of it, and you really didn't, at least not that I noticed. Of course, you still had a lot of West Coast offenses and, the pro style stuff and everything. But, that's a good point. It's a good point. I think you are starting to see more and more RPO, and I think it's only going to grow. And clearly that's what high schools are doing, and that's what colleges are recruiting, and that's what they're running. And so, of course, that's going to rub off on the league when that's all you're drafting are these RPO quarterbacks. It seems like that's everybody now. So, all right. Well, Steven, I appreciate it, man. I appreciate you taking time. I know, again, to people watching this, this is the first time we've done an edited version of an interview, a non-live interview, and it's only, I think, the 3rd or 4th interview I've ever done on the Pig Trail Network. So I appreciate you guys being patient with us. And again, Steven, thanks for making time for the interview, my man.
Absolutely, dude. Looking forward to coming on again and chopping it up.
Yeah, man. We'll do this more and more often, and we'll get better at it, and we'll get everything situated. And again, blame me for all the issues here. This is again, I'm still trying to figure all this out, but it's a lot of fun. I enjoyed doing it. So, woo pig, and oh yeah, shout out to Patreon supporters, and again, Direct Service Overhead, the garage door company, the sponsor of the Pig Trail YouTube show. I couldn't do this without you guys. So woo pig, and I'll see you around.